All right, so in the last video I showed you some things about cost curve shifting. All right, now what I want to get into really is like what it is that we're going to talk about in this unit as far as perfect competition and monopolies. Okay, so the focus of this unit and the next unit, all right, is on levels of competition and market structures. So there are four market structures that we're going to look at. We're going to look at perfect competition. We're going to look at monopolistic competition. We're going to look at oligopolies, which is a fun word to say, and monopolies. Okay? All right, so those are our four market structures that we're going to discuss. All right, now there's a trend as we go down this list. All right, you need to be aware of some of the trends. One of the trends is that as we go down this list, we're getting less and less competitive. Okay? So there's fewer and fewer sellers competing against each other, right? This is tons of sellers competing against each other. This is no sellers competing against each other. All right, so as we go down this list, we're getting less competition for the sellers, okay? Generally speaking, prices are rising. Generally speaking, profits for the company are rising as well. Those are generalities, right? Not always true, but generally speaking, that's what's going on, okay? Generally speaking, we're getting worse for the buyer in terms of price. We're getting better for the seller in terms of price. Okay, so those are some general characteristics. Now, in this unit, what we're going to cover is this extreme and this extreme. We're going to look at markets with tons of competition, and we're going to look at markets with no competition. And the reason why we'll do that first is because these two markets in between are kind of like a mix of both of the other two. And so we'll cover the monopolistic competition and oligopolies in Unit 6. All right, so let's get into this. Okay, let's talk about perfect competition. Okay. 5 characteristics. The top 3 are super, super important. I'm guaranteeing you that we'll talk about the top 3 a lot in this class and that you're going to be asked about them a lot as well. So make sure you know these top 3 characteristics. Number 1, there are many buyers and sellers in the market, like tons and tons of competition. We're talking like hundreds, thousands, maybe even millions of buyers and sellers. So tons of competition. Number 2, the goods offered are largely the same or homogeneous is what you might see them called sometimes. Homogeneous. Or homogeneous, I guess. Homogeneous products. Okay, basically, like if I was selling a product and a competitor was selling a product and we were both trying to sell to you, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the two products, right? They're basically the same. There's no difference in quality. There's no such thing as brand names in this kind of a market. Okay, everybody's selling essentially the same good, right? So you can't tell any difference between sellers' products. Number 3, firms are free to enter and exit the market easily. Okay, so what it means is like there's nothing preventing people from getting into this market and competing and selling in it, and there's nothing really preventing people from leaving the market and going and doing something else either. It's very, very easy to get into this market and compete with people. Some other times you see this described as being low barriers to entry. So right, there's few barriers that prevent people from getting in or getting out of this market. Then the other 2 characteristics, producers and consumers are relatively well informed about the products. Basically, it just means, nobody's like completely in the dark about it. Like you have an idea of like what a good product and a bad product looks like. And then number 5, buyers and sellers act independently, which just means that like 2 sellers aren't looking at each other to see what the other person is doing. They're just doing what's best for themselves, right? So to give you an example of a market that fits this is kind of a theoretical thing. There's no market that actually truly perfectly fits into this, but it's like there are some markets that are very, very close to it. Markets for like raw agricultural materials operate this way, and excuse me, markets for like raw goods mined out of the ground sometimes operate this way as well. So let me give you an example. Right, bananas. The market for bananas operates this way. Now, when I say bananas, I don't mean bananas at the local grocery store. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying like Publix or at Kroger. I'm talking about bananas when they're first harvested off of the tree and sold for the very first time in their rawest, purest form. Okay, that's a perfectly competitive market, right? So there's many buyers and sellers of bananas, right? There's tons of people buying and selling bananas all over the world. The items are basically the same, right? So like if I sell bananas, my neighbor who also has a banana farm, like if we swap the labels on our bananas, you wouldn't be able to tell that we swapped the labels. It'd be the same product. It's easy to get in and out of the market, right? There's not a whole lot of like rules and regulations preventing you from getting in or out. people are relatively well informed, right? Like you have I am not a banana expert, right? I'm not a banana expert, but I have a good idea of what a good banana and a bad banana look like. And people act independently. So what I mean by that is, like if I sell bananas and my neighbor sells bananas, he or she is not really paying any attention to what I'm doing, and I'm not paying any attention to what they're doing. We're just kind of doing what's best for ourselves. Okay? So those are 5 characteristics. And again, those top 3, like you certainly need to know them. In fact, sometimes like we don't even just call the thing a perfectly competitive market. We'll just say like, it's a market with many buyers and sellers that sell homogenous products and there's low barriers to entry. You just got to know that that's perfect competition. All right, so some results of these characteristics. So like what happens, what are some of the outcomes of this? Well, the primary outcome is that the actions of any single buyer or seller has a negligible impact on the market price. So what I mean by that is, maybe I sell bananas, and if I increase my supply of bananas, right, then that should mean the price of bananas is going to go down. But I'm such a tiny, tiny, tiny portion of the overall banana market that the change would be basically like 0. It'd be close to 0. You wouldn't even notice the change. The overall market wouldn't even notice the change. So yes, technically the price would go down if my supply increased, but it would change by such a tiny amount it wouldn't even be or barely be noticeable. Okay? And then another key part about this is each buyer and seller takes the market price as given. In other words, they're what are called price takers. Okay, they're price takers. That term, you need to know that term, price takers. They have to take the market price as given. They don't get an option to sell at whatever price they want to sell at. They must sell at the market price. And I'm going to show you what that means in just a second. Okay, so I said that, they have to take the market price as given. In other words, they can't adjust their price. They don't sell it for a higher or lower price. They must sell at exactly market price. Okay, and so what that means is that every product they sell, okay, the sellers sell or the buyers buy, okay, they're going to buy it all at the exact same price. Okay, now for you guys in my class, right, in Unit 4, we actually talked about, this is the only kind of scenario that we talked about. We talked about only scenarios where you had to sell all at the exact same price. So like what you get is that relationship of Mr. Dark, right? Marginal revenue equals demand equals average revenue and price. Okay, again, don't say Mr. Dark on an AP exam. That's not anything. That's just a name of some guy. Okay, the relationship is marginal revenue equals demand equals average revenue equals price. Okay, and so what that means is a couple of things. First off, marginal revenue isn't changing as you sell more. So that means that total revenue for this company would be increasing in a straight line. So let me show you kind of what I mean by that. All right. So if this firm can't change its marginal revenue, right, that means its marginal revenue looks like this. Dollar values versus quantities. As you sell more, right, the marginal revenue stays the same. Marginal revenue equals demand, average revenue, and price. Okay. So it's a flat line, right? It's perfectly elastic. It's a flat line. Right? Now, this marginal revenue doesn't change as you sell more. So what that means is, remember, marginal revenue is your change in your total revenue as you produce more output, right? So this is our quantity, and this is our versus dollar values, right? Since our marginal revenue, our change in our total revenue is staying the same, it means our total revenue would just do this. It would increase, right, at a constant rate, okay? Then when you add in your total cost curves to this stuff, right, that would be your total cost. And wherever the biggest difference is between your total revenue and your total cost, that's where the company is going to produce, right? So maybe right about there, that looks like the biggest profit between the two. So this company would produce right there. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about some other sort of outcomes of all of these characteristics. So I was telling you a second ago, right, that they have to take the market price as given. So let's talk about how this would look. When you draw a perfectly competitive market and firm, you set it up a very specific way. Okay. We set it up with side-by-side graphs. Okay, and we're going to look at the market on one graph. So this is going to be my market graph. So this is my market for bananas. Okay, and this is going to be my firm's graph. So this is one company, one business in this market. So this is the whole market. This is all buyers and sellers combined. This is one seller in that market. All right. Now the market graph looks like every other market graph you guys have done. It's just straight supply and demand. And wherever the two curves intersect, that's going to be our price. And that's going to be our quantity. So this is going to be our market quantity and our market price. Okay, PM and QM. Okay. I told you guys, right? This firm, they get their price from the market. They have to sell at exactly whatever the market price is. So if this is the market price right here, this firm is going to sell at that same price. So the way I show that is with these little dashed lines here and go across. And this would be the firm's marginal revenue, demand, average revenue, and price. Okay? And then the next question is, okay, well, what's this firm? How much is this firm going to produce? Well, in order to know that, you got to add in marginal cost, right? So when I add in my marginal cost curve, MR equals MC right there. So this would be the quantity the firm produces, and this would be the price the firm is going to charge, PF and QF. Okay. Now the other thing is, you might want to ask is, well, is this company making a profit or taking a loss? They're doing the best they can. They're profit maximizing. They're doing the best they can at QF because they're producing where MR equals MC. But are they actually making a profit? Well, we don't know that because we have to add in average total cost to this graph in order to know, right? I got to know their total cost in order to know if they're actually making a profit. So let's say that they are making a profit, right? Well, if they are making a profit, that means that the average total cost curve needs to be below price at quantity. So at QF, average total cost is less than price. So how much of this profit is this firm going to make? They're going to make this much profit right here. They'll make all of this green shaded rectangle. Okay, that's how much profit this firm is producing. So this is one firm in the market, and this is the whole market. Now, I was telling you, right, the firm can't adjust its price. Why can't they adjust their price? Well, the reason why is because there's so much competition, there's no differences in quality. So let's say that, like, this market price right here is $1 for a banana, okay? And so that means that this firm is going to charge $1. Well, suppose this is my company, right? And I don't want to sell for $1. I want to sell for $1.01. I want to sell for 1 penny above the equilibrium. Well, look, if I do that, if I go to 101 up here, $1.01, okay, my quantity is 0. Why? Because think about what all my buyers would do. How much competition do I have? How many options do my buyers have? My buyers have thousands of other options to buy from. So if I charge $1.01, all my buyers are just going to leave me and go buy from somebody else because they can get it from somebody else for $1. There's no difference in quality, so it doesn't matter that, like, I can't convince my buyers that, hey, my bananas are better than somebody else's. No, they're going to know that there's no difference in quality, so they're not going to buy from me even if I tell them it's better. Okay. Now, also, I would never offer my product for sale for 99 cents either. So, like, imagine a buyer comes to me and says, hey, we'll buy bananas, but we'll only buy them for 99 cents. Well, what am I going to say? I'm going to say no. I'm going to sell for $1 because I have lots of options to choose to sell to as well, right? So if the buyers and the sellers, right, they're both price takers. They both have to take the market price as given because 2 reasons. Because there's lots of buyers and sellers and because of homogeneous products, identical products. So that's the basics of introducing perfect competition.